Well, welcome everybody. This is the and hello to Heather. This is the elementary assessment tools with ClassDojo, and we're really going to be looking today at some innovative or maybe some novel ways to assess your students. If you were able to attend on Monday, this is actually a repeat of the Monday session. So while you're certainly welcome to stick around, don't feel obligated if you because you probably won't get a whole lot new, though hopefully it runs a little smoother. Um, as always, we have Colleen, who's going to be joining us here in helping to run the chat. So hopefully she'll be able to jump in here soon. But what we're really looking at today is kind of a K through 2 focus. Though if you teach third, fourth, or fifth, you absolutely can benefit from some of these tools and how you might use them with ClassDojo or Canvas. And I just double checking that chat there. I see some familiar names and a couple of familiar faces, so that's always great. And looking forward to getting into it. This is a recorded session. It's been recording already, so if you are not comfortable with that, then I would just encourage you to go ahead and switch your screen over to turn that off so that that is not viewable. But again, this is recorded and will be available this evening on the PD sheet that hopefully brought you here. So, oh, and happy Wednesday also to you, Kelly Kirk. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. I will give the disclaimer in advance. This was an interesting session for me to prepare for. It was almost a stream of consciousness originally, and it's now hopefully in a little bit more solid form here. But at any time, if you have questions or you need me to stop, drop that in the chat. If Colleen's here, she'll be able to jump on and help grab that. But if not, and you notice me just plowing ahead and no one is saying anything, then unmute that mic and let me know so I can stop and head back. So let's get started. Go ahead and share my screen with you guys. And let's move this out the way a little bit. All right, so as we think, this question that I want you to kind of have in the back of your mind is how do we use ClassDojo to assess our students in novel ways? I'm going to be jumping in and out of this presentation to actual documents, into ClassDojo classes, and all kinds of things. So feel free to. Oh, just got a message from Colleen. She's still in the Nearpod training we were just in, and apparently they're giving out some juicy tidbits, so she'll be a little late. But as we think about, moving virtually, as I'm sure you're all aware, we are well in position to be starting instruction in phase two, meaning that our students would be attending on a hybrid or A-B schedule. And depending on how things go, we may very well move into phase one. So as you think about your instruction and what does that look like, primarily remote or entirely remote, we have to begin to be a little more thoughtful, especially for our younger grade level teachers, and how do we get the needed information and knowledge and demonstrations of content mastery from our students. So keep this question percolating in the back of your mind. I will say also, starting on this slide, you're going to see a bit.ly down here. Let's hold off on that for just a moment. We're going to come to that at the end. We tried to use that during the middle of the session last time, and it slowed us down to the point where we didn't actually finish. So hold off to the end of this one. It will be on every other slide, so it's not going away. You'll still be able to catch that. But that's a note catcher and kind of a brainstorm sheet that we'll be using there. All right, ClassDojo Portfolio. This is the primary vehicle that we can use to get assessment, deliver assessment to students. It is pretty robust, particularly for our students um, that are not necessarily fully literate with their writing skills or even their reading ones. There's some workarounds, as we've seen from Colleen Ryan's class, where she has shown what she did as a kindergarten teacher and transitioned into remote teaching, and how her kindergartners were able to be independent. And so if you are not completely familiar with the portfolio, I encourage you to go back to the PD sheet, look at week one, to some of those introductory classes and lessons that will kind of give you an overview. But what I want to focus on as we talk about novelty is looking a little bit differently at that portfolio. So I'm going to come over to a student view here, and this is in my practice class. I am using teacher number two. for my demonstration, as it says down here. And this is what their end looks like. And you can see this teacher, which is me, Mr. Williams, has assigned a couple of assignments. And again, we're not going to spend a lot of time here. We're going to, just to give you a quick view, that's what it looks like on the drawing end, where kids can literally, put in their letters and uh, write that. And they can even use the record feature at the bottom right to record their audio as they complete that work. So that's great. But what I want you to look at is this area up here.
Hey, Arthur,
Yeah.
we can't see your Class Dojo page. I don't know if your share screen is paused. We can
Hmm.
just see your Google slide.
Okay, let me stop and restart. See how that goes. All right, so right now we should be seeing kind of the waiting room, or not the waiting room, but the group of people all together. Is that what you're seeing, Colleen?
Yes, that is.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over to seeing. Oh, I see what the difference was. How about now? Is the dojo screen showing?
Yes, we can see Dojo now.
Yeah, I selected a particular tab instead of my entire screen, so
Okay.
that was the issue. All right, well, I'm not going to go back through all of that again, but just suffice to say, there are different options based on how the teacher assigns the assignment in class portfolio. And again, if you're not familiar with those, go back and check that week one. I want to draw your attention to this area up here, though. These are the tools that are associated with students that are not necessarily attached to a particular assignment. So while a teacher can't necessarily give an assignment that says, hey, kiddos, attach a file for me, that is always an option for students. And I want to just bring your attention to this one in particular. The other three, as well as the journal, look pretty much like what the teachers view as, but this one is unique. On the upload file option, this is where a student can quite literally put and submit any assignment that they or task or paper or anything they want to turn in to the teacher. The file one looks very much like the picture one. It's going to say drop files, paste, or browse, and that is going to be the same thing on the image size. Just drop files, paste, or browse. I do want you to know that that paste works. I mean, I can literally take a print screen right here and go into the image side and Control V to paste that. And you can see here, I've got that image that I just took a screenshot of now being selected and turned in to be uploaded. So as we think about the potential, as we train our kids, whether they're using a Chromebook or an iPad or even a phone, what could they do with those images that they can take screenshots of their on their device and submit them in ClassDojo? And I just kind of want to open this up for a brief, just a quick discussion there. What are you seeing as a possibility with just that? Let me just pause for a minute and give you an option to respond either verbally or in the chat. Any options or ideas that come to you?
Well, in first grade, if their parents are there to help them, or if they're on an iPad, they can take a picture of their assignment or their assessment and just upload the file. That way we can review it later.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't even, I mean, as we think about the ability of our students to take photographs. Again, remember that's still a separate feature that teachers can explicitly ask kids to turn in a video or a photograph. But for anything they're working on the screen, maybe they're browsing a website and they're like, hey, this is a really cool piece. They can take that image, that screenshot, and submit that. Any other ideas? Well, then, let's proceed on then, because that's just one thing that I want us to be aware of and be thinking about as we consider moving ahead with different types of assessment. But again, remember that is available inside of ClassDojo in addition to the teacher assigned tools and assessment pieces. Now, as we get ready to pivot away from that, I do want you to remember this piece, in particular, the picture one. Recall that that is where and this one needs to reload just a minute, but that is where the teacher asks a student to say, hey, I want you to turn in your assignment with a picture. So that's what I've got here on the test picture. And so literally what that student will do when taking advantage of that is attempt to use the camera here to take a picture. Now I've got my camera on currently in Zoom, so I can see that that is going to be a problem. Okay, I'm going to stop video and reload that. And so when they're attempting to answer this, they can use the image feature on whatever device they are submitting with. And they can just hit the button there and it'll give them a quick countdown and there you have it. I have seen students as young as 2 years old have no issue working or using the camera feature on a phone or an iPad. So, as we think of low tech interventions that are easy but still help develop the fine motor skills necessary, especially for our younger students and handling pencils, um, crayons, and other things, yeah, you could have them do their work on paper and then simply take a picture of that and turn that in. So just keeping it really low tech and accessible for our students. That's one way that you can get that assessment in. So again, that's natively kind of in the portfolio, and you can see what that looks like here. I also want to take a look at our G Suite tools. And again, this is the Google uh, set of tools that we see inside of Google Drive, or as you may access separately. Um, and I want to show you a couple of things here. So, oh, I'm in the wrong area. I went and pulled up the wrong one. So what I want you to think about is there are some different tools that we're very familiar with, but that we may not necessarily be using in innovative ways or novel ways. Let's take, for example, the form. Now, probably nearly all of you are familiar with Google Forms. One of the nice things about a Google Form is when you get your link for the final form and you copy that, you can, as we've shown before, go ahead and place that directly into your class story as a hyperlink. And students can click on that in addition to listen to your teacher recording or any images that you have provided for that work. So that's always a great tool. And when students go into the form, depending on your settings, it can collect their name or email address automatically without the students necessarily even having to type that in. So that's an option. But I want to make sure that you're also aware that the form can be useful for far more than just what we would typically associate with, kind of the basic type questions. Over here on the right, we've got the one that we use all the time for the add question, but we also have video. Video is a powerful addition because what it allows us to do is to put in personalized content into our assessment. If our students aren't strong readers, we can put in a video of ourselves literally giving instruction right there. And as you add those videos, and I'm just going to put in something like teacher, oh goodness, hopefully this is what you would never do in front of a class, is do a search that you haven't previewed there. But let's just say the hot sauce spidery birthday. I have no idea what that is. Oh Lord. This could be I'm cracking up here. This could be the set of directions that you give prior to the questions initiating, right? So this could correspond to question 1 if you want it to, or it might correspond to the entire test. Consequently, you can also add images. And so if you're looking for a Google search, you've got your Creative Commons licensed images right here. And so you've got, whatever you need. Oh, select the cat. And you can add images into your assessment. And it looks like it's chewing on that a little bit. Or maybe you have the image being the representative one, and then you say, what was that above? Or what is that? Thinking of older students, you might have an image infographic of the water cycle. And you could say, hey, what is the representation pictured above? But even beyond that, there are some additional features that people may not be aware of. So take a look at this one. What is the sum of 7 and 2? One of the best and most engaging features that I've seen people use Google Forms for is to do something like a digital breakout. If you're not familiar with that, breakout rooms, you go into a place before coronavirus where you could pack a bunch of people into a small room and you work together as a team to kind of figure out some clues and get out. Well, the digital version of that, like Digital Breakout EDU, is students, either individually or in teams, are figuring out clues and then figuring out once the answer to the clues, they put those together to open the lock, right? Well, that can be done pretty easily inside of a Google form. Um, if this is the part we were in a live session, I'd be like, anyone want to hear about this? Give me a woo woo. And so then we would, of course, get woo whoops because everyone wants to know about that and continue on. But, you guys will just have to assume that I hear lots of shouting and cheering. Oh, I see a chat. Hopefully that one is a whoop whoop. So a 7 and 2. Now our answer, of course, is 25. No. Our answer is, of course, 9 here. But down here, there's this tool called response validation. And what it does is allows you to determine if the person isn't putting in quite what you want them to put in. Um, a lot of times this is done with like phone numbers. If you ask someone to put in a phone number here and they put in like an 8-digit number and you're like, that's not long enough. So you might say the number has to be, instead of greater than, you might say it is between, right? Like something like 999,000 or whatever, so you could have that placed in there. But for ours, we want this to be 9, right? So let's say we want it to be exactly equal to. It's equal to 9. And then your error one, this is if they put in anything that's besides 9. So you'd be like, whoops, and maybe try again. Now here's what that looks like now that I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and preview that. And as a student comes here and tries to answer it, maybe they put in 7 and they go on to the next question. Hey, look, that says that is not correct, right? And you could go back in 8, try to go to the next question. It's still showing you the wrong, but once you put in 9, it's okay. Now, what that means is you'll notice the asterisk next to each of these questions. Students become pretty familiar that means they have to answer it. But if this answer is not correct, and even though they've answered every question, if they go to submit, it will not allow them to submit. It's going to keep bringing them back to say, hey, this and any other one that's not correct will not allow them to go by. So this is a cool feature you can use to help with your assessment, because now I have a way where I don't necessarily have to grade every single problem on here. Even knowing that Google will do some automatic grading, I don't have to do that. What I could maybe do here is, you'll notice in the presentation feature, it says you can put in a custom message, and this is your default. Maybe you put in something like the password is pineapple. So now, if your student is able to successfully get through this, which presumably has content, whatever you're trying to assess, they don't need to turn this in. All they need to tell you is, what was the password, right? And you're like, well, how do they tell me that? Well, there we go. Back in our ClassDojo assignments, you could assign a kid to either give you a drawing or a picture or just text, type in what was the password and turn that in. So now your dojo portfolio gets a little more streamlined, and you're not necessarily looking for using this on the teacher side to see, 500 um, items, each with 6 problems each, right? Now I'm just doing a quick scan over each kid's, I can look through student 1, 2, 3 and see, okay, what did they put? And if they have it, then great. One of the few benefits of kids being at home instead of in the classroom, it's a little harder to pass that right answer around. So that is an idea here. And again, you can tweak that for any of these questions, and you can even do words. However, if you're doing a word, it must be spelled exactly as it is here. So that one I don't like as much, because our students can certainly be proficient in demonstrating mastery of content, but still not know how to spell the word correctly, right? Well, if it's misspelled, or even if it's meant to be like, you can see here, if I was asking like, what's the capital Tennessee, and this is the answer, if the student types it in with a lowercase n, it would still not be correct. So this is really one you want to aim, I feel like, for text for older learners, and I would definitely add something in the directions to be like spelling counts, so that they know that that is something they have to be aware of. All right, I'm going to pause here and see if there was any comments or anything that anyone wanted to add, or ideas that you're like, that could be interesting. Seeing the woo woo from Colleen, appreciate it. Morgan says helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that, Morgan. And by all means, guys, don't feel like you have to hold and wait. Feel free to jump in.
Someone sent me an audio, and maybe you just need to make clarification or a question about, can you put audio? I know you can put videos into a Google form, but can you do just an audio file or have a word written and record your voice to read it?
Oh, so that's a good question, the latter one. Let me start with the beginning. And Colleen, like you said, you may already have answered this, but I just noticed my video's off. So you absolutely can just do audio, though there's a bit of a workaround. You'll notice here that if I cover up my camera, I am speaking and there's no video present. So you could definitely have audio speaking over the top of something, although for the purpose of the internet, it's going to call that a video file. So you could just have a black background or something with you speaking over the top of that. So definitely an option, although a native audio embedding is not featured in there. Now, as far as putting in a picture, like I had the cat one, and you speaking over the top of that, not in Google Forms, right? That's not in there. What I would recommend instead of that would be maybe having your students looking at a Google slide or something else, an image, and then you could speak over that. Or as we refer to our ClassDojo tools, go back to that class story and put your where you can record yourself with the video. Maybe you just hold up the picture and speak over it. And in that way, they can go ahead and get that directly from you and in the assignment. You can do as many of those class stories as you'd like. I'm seeing from Renee the idea of an escape room being engaging. Yeah, I definitely can see that, and the kids have enjoyed it. I'm going to show you one more later that has an escape room built into a HyperDoc. All right, going back to share my screen. I want to show you one more from the G Suite that we don't use a whole lot, and that is a Google Sheet. So here is one. I guess I was playing around with this a little bit earlier. Oh, there we go. Here is one that we can see. I've titled it a practice addition subtraction assessment. And you can see it's got some single digit addition and subtraction problems. So I don't know if you guys ever used this, and maybe I'm showing my age here, but definitely used to have some old school worksheets where it would be like, hey, I've got all these problems on here. And when you got an answer, it would say, if your answer is this number, color it blue. Or if your answer is this number, color it green. Does anybody feel me on that? Is that something that's done even now? Yeah, I'm seeing a thumbs up there. Yeah. So yeah, and that's, the coloring isn't really all that important. It's really just a way to get a visual representation of the math or whatever it is that you've been doing, right? Google has this interest. Oh, go ahead.
The kids love the color by number. It makes them, they have to do the work first, obviously, but it gives them something to look forward to. So.
Yeah, and so this is an interesting one because you can, this is kind of a way like a magic image, right? Like, ooh, if you get it right, your teacher has put a magic picture into this worksheet or these problems. They're like, what? I need to see what this magic picture is. One of the things that you're going to see here inside of, I'm in format, inside of Google Google Sheets is the conditional formatting. And that sounds really fancy, but all it is says, if the answer is something, I'm going to do something to it. In this case, if I get this answer to be 7, it's going to turn this one blue. And it's going to do one more thing. It's not only going to turn the square blue, it's going to turn the number 7 blue as well. And so this is what that looks like. I'm just going to come over here and type 7. And so you can see it turned the box blue, it turned the number 7 blue so that you can't see anything. You don't have to make it turn blue. I could leave it as black if you wanted to be able to see the number, and then it'll still show that number as well, right? But what this means is that as you go through, and you can see it showing up here, and you're doing these subtraction problems, we're essentially coloring in this picture with color formats that the teacher has already selected. So they don't get the actual coloring piece, but again, we're talking about remote learning, right? We're not in there, and unfortunately our babies aren't necessarily with us. So they're putting this in here. And so now at the end, we've got this little shape, this figure, and for your assessment, you might just ask, hey, what was the picture at the end of your assignment? And through Dojo, they could turn that in or write it or say it or even take a screenshot. Look at my smiley face. Thanks, Miss Burgess, for the great picture. So That is not difficult to do with the conditional formatting rules, and I'll just undo those quickly here. It's as simple as just picking a cell. And again, remember I went to format, conditional formatting, that opens it up, and you add a rule and it asks you, what do you want to do with that? If it's not empty, or you say if the text contains, or if the numbers. So there's the number ones. And mine, I said is equal to, because I want it to be exactly one number. So another option, for hopefully some novelty in assessment as we try to keep our kids engaged, and continuing to participate, potentially virtually for a longer period of time than we had to do before. Pause there and just check for any questions or anything that you wanted, or comments you wanted to shout out there. All right, that's my 7 seconds of wait time. So I'm going to proceed on to see. Oh, wait a minute. Where do you do the conditional formatting? What if they get the answer wrong? Hey, that's actually a great question. Seems like something that this person should have shown you. So right here, the formatting is in the format choice right up here between insert and data. And you scroll down, it says conditional formatting. So that's where you get to it. And when you click on it, it will open over here on the right. So that's one. Here's what happens if they get it wrong. If I type in 5 here for this one, let's go over here and click on it. It just stays a 5. Okay, nothing happens. I type a 3 here, it's just a 3. And so they can tell pretty soon, and this is my error for not changing the, getting rid of the decimal points on all of them. But you can see as they're typing in, nothing's happening. It's just a bunch of numbers, and it will continue to stay that. And so you can let them know, hey, your numbers are going to disappear and a color is going to show up if you get it right. And that's one that is pretty immediate feedback. Of course, I always recommend teach kids about their best friend, the undo button. Because that is one of the drawbacks of this. If I type 3, the original problem's gone. I don't know what that problem was anymore. So undo is how we go back to see that original problem. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get back into.
All right, there's someone asked, how can you upload a music file? Can we import from our own iTunes account?
Oh, great question. So Google Forms doesn't necessarily have a iTunes syncing, right? We don't have that connection to iTunes. But on iTunes, you can well, let me take this back. It's been a minute since I've used the last time I was using iTunes, I could download music to my local device. Is that still the case? I'm seeing a head nod. Yeah. And so if you can download audio, you can upload it. And what I would probably do for that is, let's go ahead. So I don't know how familiar you are with YouTube, and I'm certainly not going to spend a whole lot of time here. But if you are in YouTube, meaning your Hamilton County one, you can upload a video. Now, what it's going to want from you when you upload that video, and it's going to look for certain types of files, your music file is not going to be set up as an MP4. From iTunes, it's going to be probably an AAC or maybe an MP3. So what you would want to do is go ahead and create that video here in the Go Live, or using Screencastify or using Loom or whatever tool you use to make videos. You can even do a Zoom and record the Zoom with just yourself playing that music. And then go ahead, and if you did that with your camera covered, then at the end of that, you would be able to go ahead and upload that file to Google Forms, and I missed it, either here in your YouTube account, which would probably be the easiest way, and there is a file insertion option if I'm not mistaken, but YouTube, go ahead and upload that to your YouTube account being the best way to go ahead and do that. Hopefully that answered that question from whoever asked, Colleen.
I think you did. Thanks. There's always a workaround.
Always a workaround, yeah. So, all right. So that's the G Suite. Let's get out of G Suite and go into something else. Quiz style tools. Now this one I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Again, this is not intended to be a PD for these tools. If you're interested, by all means, get into them, explore them. I'm just going to show you 3 that I've used that I enjoyed, and this is certainly not comprehensive. I bring up the quiz style tools because they add some levels of engagement that are hard to replicate virtually without some programming knowledge. So one of those is Quiz Is. Anyone want to give a shout out if you've used Quiz Is? They're like, I don't know about no Quiz Is. That guy looks like me. I think that's awesome. Another one is Kahoot. And so we probably have some people that are like, yeah, I know a little bit about Kahoot. I've used Kahoot before. And then there, oops, I skipped over, here we go. And then the last one that I'm gonna talk about is Quizlet. And in fact, I'll probably start here, Quizlet. So all 3 of these approach this a little differently. Quizlet, probably the oldest of the 3, and has evolved a little bit to help out with that. You can see I'm logged into a teacher account, and so this is a little misleading where it says upgrade to teacher, because that's their paid feature. They want you to pay that money. So that's all that means, the full-on upgrade there. With Quizlet, you are using flashcards. It's kind of their main, that was how they began. So if you imagine a digital flashcard where you have something on one side of your flashcard and you flipped it over and you were like, oh yeah, there it is, right? So I'm gonna click on this one. This is one I downloaded, by the way. They have a huge database that you can search through or browse of tools and sets that have been made by teachers and students all over the world. But this is a US states one here. So if you look here, I've got a flashcard, right? This one says on this card, Cheyenne. So I'm supposed to be like, hey, what is the state associated with that? Well, I can flip that over and it's Wyoming. Oh, okay. So that would be how you could do that. Now, if you don't want it to start with that, you could start with the state and then advance through and see, okay, now it'll show me the state side. Oh, what's the capital of Colorado? And you think, oh, yeah, I knew that one, right? And so what you're doing here is it's kind of just practice. This is learning. I've got a star up here to let me know, I didn't know that. I better study that one. And it will pull all those starred ones to the side at the end. And if you don't want it to go in order, so that you get used to practicing this in different random orders, you could shuffle it. There are options in here for audio. You may have noticed a speaker here. Colorado. And it will go ahead and read what is on the card, any of the text. Let me flip this one over. Salt Lake City. And you don't have to program that. You just have to have words on the screen. It will attempt to read them with the text-to-speech feature. There are other options besides just flashcards. Anything you put in, it will go ahead and try to have you adapt each of these things here. So you can see it says write. Technically, it is type, not write. So you're not using the touchscreen here. But this one's more of a spelling one, right? If I don't spell it correctly, it's not going to be correct. We do get some match ones, and that's nice. It's a little bit weird with this setup here, but you can see here of a Texas, I would need to click it and click the state, right? Oklahoma, click it, and you're going for time. So you can go ahead and see, there's my best time that I've had before, right? And if you have this set up in a class, you can see all of the students will be able to see, oh, the best time in the class was by Heather Parker, and then they could try to beat hers. And there is a test format, and this is one way where you might consider assessing your students. You can see here on the options, how many questions do you want to have? Oh goodness, not 20, let's just do 5, right? We have it, do I want a multiple choice? Do I want it true, false? Do I want to show the pictures or not? We get a couple of more grading options there. And then you go ahead and get it. And when you create the new test, it'll set it up in that format. So here it says Boston. It wants me to find out, okay, which one of these is Boston as I go through and select that. So at the end, when you finish, you'd hit check answers and it will let you know, oh, I didn't get anything because you didn't give any answers there. So, and it will show you. So this might be one where you take a screenshot of what you have here and send that in. Okay, I can let you see that. So another way to assess. So Quizlet's got a lot of tools. Again, not going to go through everything. This isn't intended to be a Quizlet tutorial or any of these, but just showing you some of the options here. I will say there is a Quizlet Live feature that looks a little bit like Kahoot. Um, and I'm trying to think if you have, it was go live. Oh, there it is right there. And it will let you go through and try to create a game out of your set to do with teams or individuals. So that is a little bit, it's just me speaking in my opinion. It is neither as good as Quiz is or Kahoot for that feature, but it is available. Colleen, any questions before I jump to the next one?
It asks, Heather asked, can that track data?
So it will track data for the student. I do not believe there's a way to share that with the teacher. However, they have upgraded some features since the last time I've used it. So if you set up a class here, which I haven't done, I think that may actually be possible. So Heather, I'll get back with you. I'll check on that after we get this. It may be a way that if you integrate, if you set this up so that it's integrated with maybe your kids' Google logins or something, then it will keep up with that. So I will double check that. Any others? All right, well, I saved, go ahead, Colleen, I'm sorry.
No, that was it. That was the only question.
So I saved Quiz is, it and Kahoot, they're very similar. And so of course we won't spend a ton of time on those. Both of these have a report feature. So for data tracking, going right to Heather's question, you can have your students or whoever play the game and download a report. And that's also true in Kahoot. When I go through, I can get a report. So that is common to both of them. Like both Kahoot and Quiz is, you have a great big library of game style ones to search. And here I can go and discover some new Kahoots if I want, or even search for ones that I'm interested in, right? Find me a Kahoot about, or just browse. So Quizzes does give you a little more customization in that when I sign up for this account, I tell it what I teach, subjects, grade levels, whatever. And so it will try to kind of populate those right here at the beginning. So you can see here, it's pulling up ELA, science, math, it's pulling up 3rd through 5th grade content. Oh, look, there's a 2nd grade when there's, so it's kind of populating some of that on the front. So that's a little different than when I set up my Kahoot account on that one. So again, we have a very similar features. Here's the biggest difference between Quiz is and Kahoot. I don't know if you've ever been annoyed as either a game participant or with your students in the class that they have to look up at a central location to see the question for Kahoot. Quiz is doesn't do that. Quiz is allows students to go ahead and take that quiz. It puts the question on their screen, and if you want, you have them take it at their own pace. Just like Kahoot, it does show a leaderboard, but it's not speed based. It's simply based on did you get it right or wrong. And so when kids are doing this kind of the self-paced option with questions on their screen, it allows them to really take their time and be able to look at that. And I really appreciate that feature of it. There's also a team feature in Quizzes. Let me see if I can find mine. There is also oops, I guess I didn't save that from my exploration earlier. There's also a team feature when you go in. Let's jump into this one and see. And you see it says play live, homework, or solo practice. Solo practice is just like homework, except there's no reporting done. So kids, if you tell them, hey, look, it doesn't give a report to teachers, feel free to practice as much as you want. That may help them feel a little more comfortable with that. So this one, on the other hand, it does go to teachers, right? It will, you will get the data from that when the kids do that one. And as you go into live, we have the classic, the test, and the team. And the team one is interesting because what happens is, and I don't know if this will show here. Yeah, it doesn't show it on this piece. What happens in the team one is kids only get parts of the answer. So imagine that we had, this subtraction problem that said something like 325 minus 400 or minus 200. And then the kid only had the 300 part, right? And other kids got the minus 200, and the other kids have maybe some of the answer choices. So they have to literally kind of group up together to figure out the problem and solve it. So it's an interesting little spin on that. Kahoot's pretty familiar, and hopefully is most people have sampled it or played it in some way. Kahoot really amps up the competitive side, right? Like you are going to need to get this question and you need to get it fast because you do speed counts in Kahoot, right? So you definitely want to be able to answer correctly and quickly. They have added a new trick, if you don't notice that. This one, it says play together live in video class or play at your own pace. So that's a little bit of a new trick for Kahoot, to be able to add that self-paced learning one. So it takes away, in my opinion, one of the biggest complaints I had for Kahoot, being that there had to be a central location for kids to view that content. Otherwise, they really couldn't answer the questions. They would just have the answer choices, but no question viewable. So that is my three that I wanted to show you here: Quizlet, Quiz Is, and Kahoot. Any questions here?
Nope, there's no questions.
All right, sweet. All right, well, the last one is around something called hyperdocs. And if you are in my have been around my school, Annie, you know that I talk about this on occasion. But here's a definition that I felt like was a pretty good one. But essentially, everything is kind of pulled together into a document or a Google slide deck, for kids to be able to typically see the content being assessed, get any resources they need to address that assessment issue, and perhaps even a way to respond all right there inside of the same thing. We'll share this document with you, but if you're curious, you can go to this link. This is the original founders of HyperDocs. They refer to themselves as the HyperDoc girls. So when they say we coined the term, that's who they're talking about. This is a great website that gives you a lot of free um, material, helping you. It's got literally a get started right here. I will say, though, it seems like with the redesign and what I've read, they are trying to begin to look at monetizing some of this. So I'd say get it while you can. But for now, you can browse and get literally click on here and get some sample hyperdocs by subject. So it's awesome. And they are usually really good. And you'll start to notice and recognize people who are putting together extraordinary hyperdocs that are high quality. So as you start going and digging through here, literally, it will just take you into a Google Drive area, and you can just browse, open, and make copies to your heart's content. Typically, they will say the grade level, and of course, you'll be able to see the name of the person over here as you're going through. And I mean, you can see there is quite a bit of content. Sarah Landis tends to make some great material, and so does Carly Mora, outstanding hyperdocs on there. So I wonder if she got married or if this is two different people. This is the way I usually see her write it. I've never seen that version. So, but there's a lot of great content. In fact, I'm going to show you one by Carly Mora here. This is one from the American Revolution. It has lots of different content. She prefers Google Slides, but some people use Google Docs. Right away, you can see there are a lot of slides in this, right? I mean, there's a ton. So this is a lot of work. Typically, hyperdocs are meant to be done over a unit. So as we think about kids being in our room, maybe Monday, Tuesday, and then we don't see them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a hyperdoc offers an opportunity to continue that learning outside of your physical presence. And lets them continue that asynchronously in a meaningful way. I'm just going to show you a couple of things in here. She's got one. This is her digital breakout EDU one, where you literally have study the American Revolution. That's a link in here that I can hit. Look, it's a Quizlet. So it's got the flashcards that they're going to use to learn about it. They're going to figure out the locks by literally clicking right here on the locks. And I'm in the teacher view, of course, right? But if you were presenting this and kids are looking at it, all of these things are a little more obvious if they're clickable. The hints here, also a Google Doc to see here, and it's showing this form where you are. Be sure to view your score to get those hits. So they are checking this out and trying to submit. So she's using those digital breakout tools. And finally, on the lock, this is where you would see that number validation, right? She's giving them some clues to make sure that they get that, telling them it's in all caps because remember, spelling does matter on that. And when they finish, if they get it right, they'll hit submit and it will allow them to break out and not keep them in. But yeah, I mean, all kinds of stuff here. We've got a nice little link to some text here, social studies for kids. On that one, we've got here on the Sugar Act an embedded YouTube video right here. Same back here. This one has a writing icon, which means I know that at some point I'm going to be writing. And oh, look, here's where I type, my response to that content. Even a Liberty's Kids one embedded down here for the Boston Tea Party. And if you've ever curious about how to set up something like this, Ashley Cox and another teacher at Howard do a great job talking about setting up the master slide on your Google Slide so that this kind of stuff is in the background and the kids are only writing on top of it and can't mess up your things. But if you ever wanted to make a copy, she does give in little notes and hints, things to the side. And this would be done over the course of a unit. You could imagine this particular content if you were doing it in class every day. And who knows, and speaking candidly, how much time we get to do social studies each day. But imagine that you were doing this every day in class for 45 minutes a day. This might very well take 2 to 3 weeks for kids to get through this. So this would be, something like this would provide an opportunity for quite a bit of asynchronous work there. So that's just an example. It's a really good one, but don't fret if you're like, oh my goodness, I could never make something like that. Remember, this website has a great one for not just samples, but also templates. So you can make your own. And they set it up nicely. Typically, a great set up around the 5E principle. And so if you're used to planning your lessons out like that, you'll be very comfortable with that one. Okay, I'm going to pause here, talked a lot. Questions here.
So I just shared out also the site Slides Mania that already has pre-made hyperdocs in Google Slides that are interactive. But then Renee had a question. She said, so she created that in Google Slides. So yes, she did, Renee. It was hyperdocking pretty much is saying like putting links into other documents. Arthur, you can elaborate more if you want.
Yeah, and and again, I haven't talked to Carly recently, but my understanding of why she chose that is because Google Slides does a great job with the visual component versus if you were going to do it in a Google Doc, which absolutely can be done. And you'll see in some of these right here, there's more docs than there are slides, right? Most of these are blue on here, and I'm reluctant. Here, let's jump into one from Sarah. But as you look into those, you absolutely can do the same thing equal to or better in a Google Doc. And so you can see here, she's got readers developing a deeper understanding of the text by jotting down thinking while reading an article online. So we've got some eyes here, copy and paste words from the phrases and here. And it's just going through and again, using a Google Doc. She's actually done a very good job keeping it visually appealing. Most of the time it doesn't look quite like that.
Can I share something I've learned just teaching kindergarten with it?
Sure.
So I prefer Google Slides, especially for the younger students, because they can't like move around or like it's just easier for them to manipulate the slides because all I have to do is press an arrow to move to the next information you want to give them. So that's why I prefer Google Slides over the doc because scrolling up and down can be challenging for our youngest learners. But I think either way is very, it's a great resource to use, but looking at what grade you teach and how you are presenting using the technology, that would vary in my choice.
Great answer, Colleen. And that's something that I hadn't really thought about on that end. But so yeah, this one's available. You'd have to file and make a copy if you wanted to be able to write in it. Or I guess you could request access from Sarah herself. But great differentiator there. Good question. Good answer. Any other questions?
We have not had any other questions.
Okay. Oh, and this one's pretty basic, right? And and for better or worse, this is what you see a lot of times: is look in this and then do this. But again, it is giving you all the resources except for their science book. Um, and all they have to do is explore the links in any order you wish and record any new knowledge, ahas, questions, or what you might wonder. So this isn't bad just for like a note-taking one, right? And it's an easy way to assess it. And you literally have videos and articles and things linked right in here. So this is kind of the essence of um, kind of how HyperDocs got started. Just putting a repository or access to links and resources all in the document. So the big question then is the one we started with, right? How can we use Dojo and many of these tools to assess students in novel ways? So what I'd like for us to do is, let's go ahead and jump onto this bit.ly. It is bit.ly /dojo assessment, and it is a capital D and a capital A. You will need those. In fact, I don't know if Colleen's already put this in the chat, but
I'm doing it right now.
I'll do that here.
I'm doing it right now, Arthur.
Oh, okay. Well, I beat you to it then.
Well, I'm gonna hyperlink the actual doc because
Okay.
I've noticed when you put bit.lys into Zoom chats, it doesn't make it clickable.
Okay, perfect. Glad I didn't even know that you were on that, so that's great. And then I'm going to try and paste that right here myself and so what I'd like for you to do is, this is pulling some of the collective knowledge from the group that was in here before as well. But what we didn't get to was the very end. So I'd like us to scroll down and kind of look at and work our way back. So the last one here is HyperDocs. By all means, I would, and so I'm what is this? This is page, I can't tell. Well, let's jump to the HyperDocs one. I'd love if you'd put your name in here at the front and see if you wouldn't mind adding a few ideas. I know we are over our 4:45 time, so if you have to go, I'm going to ask Colleen if she wouldn't mind just putting the attendance link in there if you have to go. But it'd be great if we could leverage the collective brain power of the room, the virtual room here, to provide some ideas and options for people who are thinking about using HyperDocs or looking at maybe using some existing assessments at ClassDojo and quiz style tools. So those are the three areas I really want us to look at. So I'll just put one in here. And I'm like, I don't even have an idea, right? I don't even know how hard is it to get started. And while people are typing in there and thankfully contributing their shared expertise and brain power, would love for, if you have any questions, comments, want to shout out, do that now at this time. And we'll just take about 1.5 minutes to give this time to wrap it up.
There was a shout out for sharing the HyperDocs sites. They said thank you. That was new to them.
Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Yeah, Heather asked a really pertinent question. How is this different from just using a Google slide presentation? So when I think of a traditional slide deck using Google Slides, that's me. It's a one-way information delivery, right? I am going to either be the sage on the stage, or I'm going to just kind of give that knowledge to you in some way. And yeah, when I'm in class, I can make that more interactive. I can use productive talk moves. I can say, hey guys, why don't you turn and talk to your elbow partner and let's thing that, and I can circulate and get a lot of information. But the reality is we may not be in a position where we can do that, right? We may not be able to see those babies or walk around between them or touch them or whatever else. We may have them on a computer somewhere else. So with that in mind, the main difference is it allows the back and forth. They're going to have this information where they can click on it, see me maybe with a YouTube presentation or someone else or something else, and they can respond all inside of the same document. So for me, that would be the biggest differentiator. Colleen, did you have anything that you wanted to add on to for this question here?
No, I think you're right. I'm just going to put a little plug in too about tomorrow. There, we're going to be doing a Nearpod session, and there's some features that Nearpod
Mm.
and Google Slides can go in together. So, if you're available to watch that, to attend, that would be really good because I think it's going to be a cool feature that's going to kind of really add on to what Arthur has just shared with HyperDocs and using Google Slides. So it's tomorrow at 4, and it will be recorded if you can't attend. We'll put that link on there too. But
Yeah,
other
Colleen, were you able to put the recording on from yesterday's already?
yes, it is on there.
Okay,
I
great,
know
great.
yesterday we didn't share about the Nearpod add-on, so I will share about that tomorrow.
Session recording, click here, and yep, it's showing YouTube. Awesome. So that is definitely available. I encourage you guys to really attend either the Nearpod session or go back and review that because of all the tools that I've shown, and I've intentionally left Nearpod off because Colleen does a great job going into a deep dive of Nearpod. It has the potential to really be the tool that is used for kind of everything. It's got so many interactive features available, and I'm really excited about that, and I'm super excited that Hamilton County has decided to spring up for that. All right, well, we are 4:56, so we are quite a few minutes over. I do appreciate you guys sticking around.